All right. Just like last Sabbath, part of our reading kind of touched on the theme of my sermon. So I'm just going to reread the Romans 9:17. For example, Scripture says to Pharaoh, I put you here for this reason, to demonstrate my power through you and to spread my name throughout the earth. Therefore, if Yahweh wants to be kind to anyone, he will be. If he wants to make someone stubborn, he will. You may ask me, why does Yahweh still find fault with anyone? Who can resist whatever Yahweh wants to do? Who do you think you are to talk back to Yahweh like that? Can an object that was made say to its maker, why did you make me like this? A potter has a right to do whatever he wants with his clay. He can make something for a special occasion or something for everyday use from the same lump of clay. If Yahweh wants to demonstrate his anger and reveal his power, he can do it. But can't he be extremely patient with people who are objects of his anger because they are headed for destruction? Can't Yahweh also reveal the riches of his glory to people who are objects of his mercy and who he had already prepared for glory? That is what Yahweh did for us, whom he called, whether we are Jews or not. Turn to Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 1. For the burden of Habakkuk, the prophet did see, O Yahweh, how long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear? Even cry out unto thee of violence, and thou wilt not save. Why dost thou show me iniquity, and cause me to behold grievance? For spoiling and violence are before me, and there are that rises up strife and contention. Therefore the law is slacked, and judgment does never go forth. For the wicked does compass about the righteous, and therefore wrong judgment proceeds. Behold you among the heathen, and regard and wonder marvelously, for I will work a work in your days which you will not believe, though it be told you. For lo, I rise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, which shall march through the breadth of the land and possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity shall proceed from themselves. Their horses also are swifter than the leopards, and are more fierce than the evening wolves. And their horsemen shall spread themselves, and their horsemen shall come from far. They shall fly as the eagle that hastens to eat. And they shall come all for violence. Their faces shall sup up as the east wind, and they shall gather the captivity as the sand. And they shall scoff at kings, and princes shall be the scorn unto them. They shall deride every stronghold, and they shall heap dust and take it. Then shall his mind change, and he shall pass over and offend, imputing this his power unto his Elohim. The great questions of faith that make us search for answers are the everyday questions of life. We can understand the road of salvation. We can understand that Yeshua Messiah, what he did for us on the stake and his resurrection after 3 days and 3 nights. What we have a hard time understanding is why bad things happen to good people. Why does it seem that Yahweh allows the guilty and the sinful to go unpunished and even advance in this world, and he chastises the believers? Why does Yahweh allow believers to fall into sin? Why did Yahweh allow people to die on airplane crashes? Why did Yahweh allow 160 people to die in Oklahoma bombing, or any of the mass shootings that we've seen lately, many of them children? Why? What did the children do that was so wrong? Why did Yahweh do this? Why did Yahweh do that? Why? We search for answers, and none seem available. Many times we wonder, has Yahweh made a mistake? In the process of conversation, someone said, I think Yahweh made a mistake. He knew Adam and Eve were going to sin. He had to, or he wouldn't be all-knowing. Yet he didn't stop or block the attempt in any way. It would all be different if Yahweh had acted. The same question is asked about a mother as she looks at her daughter who's just been hit by a car driven by a drunk driver. We are not alone in this quest. Humanity has been searching for answers like these since the times of the Old Testament. While the circumstances for the questions may change, the questions remain the same. It would be different if Yahweh had acted. The reality of the matter is that Yahweh does act. Many times we can't see the action because we're caught up in the situation. We also, at times, expect Yahweh to act the way that we want him to act. And you can't understand why he doesn't. Isaiah 55, verse 8, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says Yahweh. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Jeremiah 16:17 says, "For my eyes are upon all their ways, and they are not hid from my face, neither is their iniquity hid from my eyes." And Ezekiel 18:25 says, "Yet you say, the way of Yahweh is not equal. Hear now, O Israel, house of Israel, is not my ways equal? Are not your ways unequal?" Have you ever sat down to a movie, and probably a detective or a legal story, and the crook gets caught and say, if he only had did it my way, he wouldn't have gotten caught? Armchair coaches are always questioning why the coach of a team cannot see things as clearly as they can. I've even been called to account for illustrations that I have used in sermons. Why did I use this one? Where did you find that statement? We've all been there. The book of Habakkuk is a book that grapples with that question. Why doesn't Yahweh act in judgment on the sinful people of Judah? Habakkuk is surprised with Yahweh's answers. Now, the reference to Babylonians, which is the Chaldeans, Chaldeans is southern part of Babylon. Also, today's name is Iran. In chapter 1, verse 6 places the book within the 7th century BC. It can fall into the dating of any of the three kings, Manasseh in 697 to 642, Josiah from 640 to 609, or Jehoiakim from 609 to 598 BC. Theologians point to the Babylonian victory at Karshemish as being a major event in dating the book. Described as in verse 7 through 11, a place date between 606 and 604 BC. The setting of the time is critical as the sinfulness of the nation is what Habakkuk is addressing to Yahweh in chapter 1. Babylon was establishing itself as a world power. Assyria, the dominant world power at the time, was in decline. As both powers fought each other over they provided Judah with a time of prosperity under Josiah. For Habakkuk, the international situation was serious, but more serious was the internal situation of Judah. When Josiah died, Jehoahaz rose to the throne. They were immediately invaded by the Egyptians, and Jehoiakim was placed on the throne as a puppet king. Jehoiakim was evil, ungodly, and rebellious. 2 Kings 23, verse 36. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Zebudah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that his fathers have done. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him, and Yahweh sent against him bands of the Chaldees, bands of the Syrians, bands of the Moabites, bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of Yahweh which he spoke by his servant the prophet. Surely. Oh, by the way, I was in, I'm still in 24. 2 Kings 24, verse 2. Yahweh sent against him bands of the Chaldees, bands of the Syrians, and bands of the Moabites, and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of Yahweh, which he spoke by his servants the prophets. Surely at the commandment of Yahweh came this upon Judah, to remove them out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did, and also for the innocent blood that he shed, and he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which Yahweh could not pardon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiachin, his son, reigned in his stead. And the king of Egypt came not again any more out of his land, for the king of Babylon had taken the river from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates, all that pertained to the king of Egypt. In 2 Chronicles 36, verse 5, Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh his Elohim. Against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and bound him in fetters to carry him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried of the vessels of the house of Yahweh to Babylon, and put them in his temple at Babylon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim, and his abominations which he did, and that which was found in him, behold, they were written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah, and Jehoiachin his son reigned in his stead. Nations rise up against nation. There's a national corruption, immorality, social injustice. The country is being destroyed from within and without. There's an increase in crime. There's an increase in drugs. A general falling away from Elohim. Personal pleasure is more supreme rule of life. Decency dies and human life is taken very frivolously in the streets. Now for the question. Am I describing Habakkuk's day or ours? You can't tell the difference. I know it sounds like a commercial for laundry detergent. Can you tell the difference? But it's much more serious for this reason. If Habakkuk is lamenting as to why Yahweh is not acting in judgment for the evil in Judah, and Yahweh answers that he is going to act in judgment, what is that saying for our society? Yahweh is acting in judgment. This passage is the first complaint that Habakkuk has with Yahweh. In chapter 1, verse 2, O Yahweh, how long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear? Even cry out unto thee of violence, and thou wilt not save. Why dost thou show me iniquity, and cause me to behold grievance? For spoiling violence are before me, and there are that rises up strife and contention. Therefore the law is slacked, and judgment does never go forth, for the wicked does compass about the righteous. Therefore wrong judgment proceeds. In it, 4 questions are raised to Yahweh. How long must I cry or call for help, but you do not listen? Number 2 is violence, but you do not save. Number 3 is, why do you make me look at injustice? Number 4, why do you tolerate wrong? How long must I cry for help, but you do not listen? This is the eruption of emotion of a dedicated and committed believer who can't understand why Yahweh does the things that he does. Habakkuk is asking, why doesn't Yahweh act on behalf of those who remain faithful to him and punish those who do not? He is a person involved in a desperate search for what he called justice. And you got the second question, violence, but you do not save. It would be like walking down the street in Panama City. Someone jumps up and begins to rob you. In desperation, you cry for someone's help, and no one comes. You cry violence. No one acts. Not even Yahweh. And the question comes, Yahweh is all-powerful. He could have stopped this. Why didn't he? Habakkuk asks, why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrong? The wrong questions, maybe. Sometimes we ask Yahweh the wrong questions. We ask why he hasn't acted rather than how is he going to act. It's human nature to want vengeance, to see the bad guys get theirs. Yahweh does not tolerate wrong. A survey of the Old Testament, particularly what happened to Israel, would have told Habakkuk that Yahweh does not tolerate sin. He may choose to overlook it for a time, but he does not tolerate it forever. He may overlook it for a time to allow humanity a chance at forgiveness. He may need a time to raise up the agent of his judgment. But one thing is sure, that judgment will come. Habakkuk's statement in verse 4 expresses his sentiments well when he says that the law seems paralyzed. Therefore the law is slack, and judgment does never go forth. For the wicked does compass about the righteous, therefore wrong judgment proceeds. We see this day after day after day in our own justice system. All seems wrong for Habakkuk. He complains to Yahweh, and now Yahweh answers. The questions of Habakkuk were rhetorical in nature. He did not expect Yahweh to answer, nor did he expect the answer he got. Yahweh basically tells Habakkuk, I'm going to tell you something that you just won't believe. Talk about a way of getting someone's attention. And let's be honest, if I met you at the door when you came here, and I said, do I have a story for you? I wouldn't have to do much to get your attention. In fact, I probably would have to fight people off. But that is just what Yahweh tells Habakkuk. Just as Yahweh dealt with Job on a personal basis, so was he to deal with Judah on a national basis. So in verse 5, he tells Habakkuk to watch the nations and see what's happening. Habakkuk 1:5, behold, you are among the heathen, and regard and wonder marvelously, for I work a work in your days, which you will not believe, though it be told you. Today, watch the nations. What's going on out there? I'm going to raise the Babylonians, a ruthless and impetuous people, as his agent of judgment against Judah. Today's our end. Habakkuk 1:6, for lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. And verses 7 and 8 speak of their power. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgments and their dignity shall proceed of themselves. Their horses also are swifter than the leopards, and are more fierce than the evening wolves. And their horsemen shall spread themselves, and their horsemen shall come from far. They shall fly as eagles that hasten to eat. Babylon was noted for its violence. What do we have today that's noted for its violence out there in the news? Islam, maybe? They were fierce and cruel people committing atrocities without any forethought and remorse. Who does that sound like? Babylon was without rival. Their power allowed their status. They were a law to themselves. Their power promoted their own honor. Sure, a law. Taking over Europe. They recognized no other law or judge but their own. had power in their speed. They were swifter than leopards, fiercer than wolves at dusk. Watch the news. All the Muslims are integrating into Europe. They're swift. They all overrun the countries. Their laws are taken over. They are just like leopards. They recognize no other law. Both animals are fierce, fast, and excellent hunters. They're talking about a vulture is a majestic bird in the area of Israel. They circle higher and higher above their prey, and they build speed and then swiftly dive to their prey. What a terrible enemy they were. Their power made them successful. The enemy was coming like a whirlwind and would gather prisoners like sand, a number too vast to calculate. What religion practiced slavery today? What religion sells people like things, treats people like things? Their power made them scoffing. Their power made them arrogant. They scoffed at the fortresses of their enemies. They were like sand castles built too near the water, and then the waves came and destroyed the castle, and nothing could be done to stop it. Their power led to their sacrilege. They considered their own power as coming from them and not Elohim. Therefore, there was no mercy in their actions. For them, might is right. Might became divine. Now, Habakkuk has a dilemma. In Habakkuk 1, verse 12, art thou not from everlasting, O Yahweh, my Elohim, my Holy One? We shall not die, O Yahweh. Thou hast ordained them for judgment, and, Almighty Yahweh, thou hast established them for correction. Thou art of purer eyes than to behold evil, and cannot look upon iniquity. Wherefore lookest thou upon them that deal treacherously, and holdest thy tongue when the wicked devours the man that is more righteous than he, and makes men as the fishes of the sea, as the creeping things that have no rule over them. They take up all of them with the angle. They catch them in their net and gather them in their drag. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. Therefore they sacrifice unto their net and burn incense unto their drag. Because of them their portion is fat, and their meat plenteous. Shall they therefore empty their net and not spare continually to slay the nations? Habakkuk was faced with a great dilemma. Why would Yahweh use a non-believing nation to judge his people? Certainly a non-repentant Judah was better than a brutal Babylon. This leads us to Habakkuk's second complaint. Why them? You are too pure to look at evil. Why use these evil people? He also found unthinkable the extinction of the people of Judah to the Babylonians, who would easily do this. Even today, they hope for it. They pray for it. Death to America, death to Israel. Yahweh would not forsake his people. Yahweh would not allow sin to go unpunished, though. He reminded himself that Babylon was a messenger of discipline, not destruction of Judah. He had to realize that Yahweh was in control and could use any means he saw fit. What did I just read you? What a part of our reading today? Told you this. Did this leave Habakkuk in want of a further answer? Yes, it did. That question is what we deal with today. Why does Yahweh do what Yahweh does and not what we want him to do? Why does Yahweh allow evil to continue to be unpunished? The answer is, he does not. Yahweh is not bound to act by our standards, and therefore his actions may be confusing to us. Remember what I just read to you, Isaiah 55:8. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says Yahweh. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, my thoughts than your thoughts. Jeremiah 16:17. For my eyes are upon all their ways. They are not hid from my face, neither is their iniquity hid from my eyes. Ezekiel 18:25. Yet you say the way of Yahweh is not equal. Hear now, O house of Israel, it is not my way. Is not my way equal, and are not your ways unequal? Yahweh also acts on his own time as well as his own way. It creates circumstances where we can ask, as Habakkuk did, why don't you act? The reality of the matter is that he does act in judgment today. But as Yahweh acted in a way that Habakkuk didn't understand, so too does Yahweh act in judgment today in ways that we don't understand. Why does Yahweh allow bad things to happen to good people? It's because as we walk through the bad things of life that we learn more of a dependence on Yahweh. We learn patience as we learn to wait on Yahweh. We learn of the sovereignty of Yahweh in our lives. Why does he not judge our country for the sin that is in it? I suggest to you today that Yahweh is judging and has sent a Babylonian army. We see the recent decisions of Human Rights Council as being a defeat in the battle against homosexuality, or the UN criticizing Israel or the U.S. for our stance on the Palestinian people, or the overwhelming support of the Islamic religion. Might the question be, what right does the church of today, with the evils present within itself, have to judge someone else's lifestyle? Might the situation be a judgment against an unrepentant church by the vote of a Human Rights Council and the United Nations Assembly touching just a few things that I've mentioned? An unrepentant church that tolerates sexual abuse and immorality, or even a nation for that matter. A sexual abuse, tolerating the homosexual lifestyle, social injustice, a denial of the sovereign Yahweh Elohim. What right does a church have to speak out against homosexuality when certain denominations perform same-sex marriages? Or says nothing about the evils of abortion, or refuses to support Israel, or they accept Islam instead of Christianity? When bad things happen to us, are we not victims of Yahweh's judgment on the church for it is not standing up and being the holy people of Yahweh? You see evil and you don't say anything? Are you not promoting it by not saying anything? When we fall victim to the injustices of the world, when we fall victim to a world that is under the curse of sin, is not one of the lessons that we can learn is that it is all right to question Yahweh? To say, I don't understand? We can be led to understanding through doubt. Honest doubt may be a truer religious attitude than the superficial belief. Job nor Habakkuk used their questions to shield themselves from moral responsibility, nor shunned Yahweh's claim on their lives. Someone once stated Yahweh's revelation of himself laid the ghost of the prophet's doubt and gave birth to a finer faith. Redeeming Elohim had used his questions as a mean of grace to draw Habakkuk closer to himself. Can he not allow the believers of today the same freedom to question him and draw closer to Yahweh? So don't be afraid to get personal with Yahweh. Ask your questions. We are the sons of the Most High Elohim. Dad, what are you doing? I don't understand. Show it to us. Give us a clue. Help us to understand. Why, Dad? Why? Develop a close relationship. A lot of people don't have it. You're supposed to be close like husband and wife is close. A lot of families don't even have that. Draw close to him, and he will draw closer to you. Yahweh bless.